You built a business people love, but behind the scenes, it's all on you. Vision to Grow is your space to lead with clarity, hire with purpose, and finally breathe again. I'm Chrissy, your no fluff leadership expert, here to help you hire better and lead teams with less mess. Hello and welcome back to Vision to Grow. I'm Chrissy L, your host and also the founder of Grow Advantage. I support female service-based business owners to scale their businesses, and my focus is always on hiring, teams, leadership, and operations. Today, we're going to dive straight into today's episode, and we're going to talk about, when you go on one of those business Facebook pages and you see one of those posts where the founder writes, I'm looking for a magical unicorn who can do it all. They're going to fix my strategy. They're going to do my socials. They're going to manage my inbox. They've got amazing communications. They're going to actively look for leads for me. They're going to design all my landing pages. And they are also going to be able to do automations, plus my laundry, plus walk my dog. And sometimes it's for an offshore VA. Sometimes it's an Australian VA. But I'm going to tell you why every time I see one of those posts lovingly, I want to hit my face with my hand or bang my face on my desk. It makes me so frustrated because I totally get where you're coming from as a business owner. You're tired. You've been working in your business for quite some time. Even if you've got some team to deliver your services, and even if you've got some support, what you really want is someone to come in and take over and take all the icky stuff that you don't want to do anymore, take off your plate and finally make your business feel lighter. But here's the thing that I see play out every single week, not just with clients, but in the small business industry as a whole. That one magical VA or OBM you're dreaming of, they are not the answer and they simply do not exist. They're not the reason your business is feeling heavy, and they're not going to make the whole thing better. In fact, chasing that mythical do-it-all hire is one of the fastest ways to burn them out. Even if you find someone who says they can do all the things, you're going to burn them out, you're going to burn out your budget, and you're going to keep getting stuck. The reason that your business feels heavy is not because you've not hired that one person. There's other things behind that, and that's what we're going to talk about in today's episode. So we're going to talk about why the unicorn VA model is setting founders up to fail. The two metaphors I use with every single client, the farm and the first class flights, and what you want to build instead, right? So a true operations ecosystem that supports you as the CEO. I'm going to say that again because that's what we're going to talk about today. So 1, why the unicorn VA model is setting founders up to fail. 2, I'm going to run you through 2 really fun metaphors I use to explain why this is not the answer and what we should be doing instead. And what to build instead. So a true operations ecosystem that supports you as the CEO. And I'm all about that, right? So whenever I speak to a new client, I do a discovery call throughout this podcast. As the CEO and founder of your business, I want you to be so happy in your role. I want you to wake up every day little by what you do. And yes, there are stages in business where we are holding a lot and we are doing probably multiple roles in our business, but we do want to be aiming towards something that we find truly fulfilling, that makes us more money and gives us flexibility. But essentially that gives us this kind of success that is success to us. Lifestyle we want, the money that we want, we slog it so hard in the early years in our business, and at some point it needs to feel lighter and more easeful with the correct support. So this is one of those episodes that will change how you look at your team forever, especially if you ever thought, why can't I find my person? And let's talk about why you don't need a unicorn. You need a farm and a flight plan. So the unicorn problem, let's start with that. Founders love to believe that they can just find the right person, everything will click. But what they're really doing is they're setting that person up to fail. Because no matter how good that individual is, they are still one human. And one human can't be the strategist, the creative, the admin, the systems brain, and the therapist all in one. Think of yourself, right? So think of yourself when you go and do a job, when you've gone and worked in corporate, your life before you're a business owner and you work for someone else. Inevitably, everyone has parts of our job that we love more and love less when we're not designing the job and it's not ours, right? So for example, like in my roles, let's go back to my early days in recruitment. Like I loved interviews. I loved meeting candidates. I loved going on client meetings. business development, cold calls is hard, but I was okay with that. What I didn't love was typing up my notes, doing all the admin, pulling reports, reporting on my KPIs. So inevitably, what happened every week was I procrastinated on it. If I did deliver, it wasn't the best quality. It was my least priority because it simply was not my skill set, right? That's one example. I'm sure in every part of everyone's job, like if you're really honest, and I always ask this with people at interview, like what is something that you would happily never do again? Because essentially, if you hire a VA, they're typically going to be closer aligned to one skill set, right? They're going to be more creative, or they're going to be more customer service focused, or they're going to be more techie. I'm not saying that they can't do all the things, but are they going to do them well? Are they going to enjoy it? And then are they going to deliver that are they going to deliver that well? And if they've got multiple balls that they're juggling, they're going to drop one. And then what I've experienced, especially with offshore VAs, is they so want to make you happy and do all the things, and they're not going to put their hand up when they're not happy and they're not doing stuff. They're just going to go quiet and it's not going to get done. And I've seen that over and over and over. And I'm sure you're listening to this and nodding along because either it's happened to you or it's happened to a big bestie where they're like, why can't I hold on to my VAs? And lovingly, the problem is you. You're getting them to do too much. So the data backs this up, right? And it's not that your unicorn VA isn't talented. It's that you've built them a paddock with no fences and told them to fix everything, right? I'm going to use that farm horse metaphor because there's a solid reason for it, right? And the data backs this up, right? I did a lot of research on this episode because I never want my podcast episode to just be my opinion. I researched them. But the data does back this up, right? So one global study found that 38% of overextended staff report chronic burnout and nearly a third plan to leave within a year. Because if you're overextending them, if you're giving them too broad a role, you're not giving them clear direction, the systems aren't in place, you're not telling them what good looks like, and essentially you're getting them to do work that they don't like, it's maybe not their skill set and it doesn't light them up, they're going to vanish. Your magical unicorn is going to lose their sparkle and they are simply just going to go and ghost you, and then you're going to be back to square one. Also, if you are bringing someone into your business, you need to have very, very clear places about how you're going to hold those systems and that skill set should they go. Something we always talk about with our clients. So if you're building a business model that relies on one overworked mythical creature, it's just simply not going to work, right? So I went to stay with my kids a few weeks ago. We did a little holiday in the last school holidays, and we went to this really beautiful Airbnb, and it was a farm stay. So it was this lovely farmer couple. They had all of these animals. It was a working farm and it was stunning. It was in the New South Wales countryside. The clocks had just changed. I was waking up ridiculously early with my son and we were watching the sunrise, and it was so beautiful, like really getting back to nature with my kids. Gorgeous countryside, stars, bonfires, the whole shebang. But they had all of these animals on this farm, right? And they had the most stunning white horse. Like, it was so beautiful that I got photos of this horse and it actually kind of glowed because it was so white, so tame, so lovely. And it looked like a unicorn. Honestly, from a distance, you were like, this is like a cartoon unicorn. My kids were like blown away with it. It was beautiful. But here's the thing. It wasn't a unicorn. It was a real horse. It was calm. It was grounded. It was strong. And it came over to us and we could touch it. We could feel it. And it stood next to its bestie, the brown horse, right? So I have got photos of this. I will share them this week on my socials. But this white horse stood next to this brown horse who was also gorgeous, right? And then also on the sheep, there were cows, there were goats, there was sheep, there was a dog, and there was peacocks. I don't know why there was peacocks, but there were peacocks. They were noisy, and there was hens and cockerels and the whole thing, right? But the cows, right? We know what a cow does on a farm. A cow is there to produce meat if it's a girl cow, and maybe get sent off to the abattoir if it's a boy cow after it's finished doing whatever the cow does. I'm obviously not a farmer, but the goats were hilarious. You know, my kids fed the goats. They were chaotic. They brought a lot of energy. They trimmed the grass. The sheep were quiet. We know sheep produce wool. The dogs organized things, kept everything in line. And the peacocks were like, obviously not overly useful, but beautiful. And they were like hectic and really like a total vibe, right? So the kids loved them. And this metaphor sort of came to me. Like, I was watching the animals of the farm all doing their thing, and every creature on that farm had a role. No one was trying to do it all, right? The cow wasn't trying to fly. The horse wasn't trying to lay eggs, and the peacock wasn't trying to produce wool. And the farmer, they weren't out there shearing sheep or chasing goats. They were managing the ecosystem, right? So they brought people in to shear the sheep. The farmer had a broad job and it looked after the animals, but they, lovely couple, but they knew what they were doing. They weren't trying to be a cow, right? They weren't trying to make bacon they weren't trying to produce bacon as a pig. So it sounds really offensive, and I hope these farmers don't listen to this podcast, right? I'm sure they won't. But I think it was very clear what animal was what, right? No one was, like, I love that metaphor. The cow wasn't trying to fly, you know? Dogs aren't trying to lay eggs. That is a metaphor for business, the way that I teach business anyway. You don't need a unicorn. You need a farm. You need a mix of specialists doing what they do best. And this is the point where you're scaling, right? So I'll say that again. You do not need a unicorn. You need a farm. You need a mix of specialists doing what they do best, and then held together by a strong system and a steady farmer, right? Or a steady business owner. And if you decide that you don't want to run the farm, then you bring in a farmer to run it and you just own the farm, right? Now, we talk about visionaries and integrators on that. There is a place for that, and I'll get to it, okay? So when one animal on the farm is resting, the farm doesn't start running, right? So if it's not the season for shearing sheep, that's okay. There's something else going on in the farm. That's what we built at Grow Advantage, right? We built operational ecosystems where everyone in our business, for us, has a role and nothing relies on one highly extended human. And that is exactly what we do for our clients too. So I love the story of the farm. And honestly, this was like coming to me when I was watching like the peacocks running around and my kids stroking the horses. It's people staying in their lane, right? Me too. Like, I actually had a meeting with my team the other day, and we were running through the internal improvements we want to do. And they were saying, Chrissy, you need to connect your Google Calendar to Asana. And I went, oh yeah, I'll do that. And I was like, actually, no, I won't. Like, I'm not going to do it. I'm going to delegate that to my VA who has access to my inbox and can do that, right? Because I could do it, but I would be like flapping around, using a user guide. Like, she's already done it. She already knows how it works. So why would I do it when there's someone who's going to do it better than me? And that's one little task, but one little task that would take her 5 minutes, and she could say, hey, it's done, it's sorted. Or I could sit there, log on, get up the user guide, probably because I'm a bit ADHD, get distracted, do something else, feel bad that I've not done it, try and do it again. Like, who's not been there? Because that is me as a white horse trying to be a cow. Oh my God, I should not say cow. So offensive. It's me as a white horse trying to be the steady, dependable, working collie, right? My God, this could get really offensive really fast, but it is meant with love. I love my team and they all are dazzling peacocks, right? So the first class flight model. Now, let's leave the farm and let's head to the airport, right? Imagine you've booked a first class flight. Let's say you're flying from Australia and you're going to LA. You're going to a fabulous business conference. When you book that flight, or your VA books that flight, and you've bought that first class ticket, what do you actually care about? That your flight leaves on time, that your champagne is cold, that your luggage shows up, and that you arrive safely and rested after being looked after. You're not thinking about who's fueling the plane, who's piloting it. Let's start that again. You're not thinking about who's fueling the plane, who's piloting it, who's loading the bags, and who's handling the catering. You've paid for the experience. And you've also paid to get from point A to point B safely and with ease. Behind the scenes, there is a lot going on. There's a pilot, there's cabin crew, and there's ground staff. Now, if I use that metaphor to look at what we do at Grow Advantage for our clients, the pilot would be the strategic integrator, right? They are setting the flight plan, making the plane get from point A to point B, and they've been given what they need to do. So they've been told they need to get from Sydney to LA, and that's exactly what they do. The cabin crew is like our integrator, and they make sure that the passenger on board is communicated with, they're fed, they're looked after, they know what's going on, they're not questioning things, and they're there to answer any questions and make that experience really pleasant, right? And then there's the ground staff, which is like our operations pool. So that's tech support, that's admin support, that's marketing, all your social media tiles, all of that stuff. And what you, as the founder, experience is you're sitting in first class, right? You've got your champagne in your hand and you know that the plane's running smoothly. That's what we seek to create with our fractional integrator and operations partnership. We take your operations, we take what you need to happen, and we just make it happen. And then the cabin crew or the integrator is just reporting back to you on what that needs to do. And you can do this for your own business. This is our model. But my point is, this is not one person, right? This is multiple people with different skill sets. Like a marketing person is not going to be a finance person. A lawyer is not going to be a doctor. And your delivery team, let's say you're in allied health, the person who goes and sees your clients on the road, they're not going to do marketing. It's not how it works. So yes, it's very tempting to hire your mate and get them to do A, B, C, D, E, and F in your business, but it will fail and it will put a strain on that relationship and a strain on you as the business owner and a strain on your business. You are the founder. You want to be sitting in first class. You don't need to manage everything. You need to get to a point where you can just enjoy the flight. And that's what operational maturity should feel like. Safety, predictability, and growth. And I am there with my team, right? I have a meeting with them. I say, I think these things need to happen. And they just go make it happen. And then they tell me that I'm there. So I'm on the ground at the airport. And then all of a sudden, I'm at my destination. It is that simple. And with the right strategy, systems, and execution, you can do it. And if you're not there yet, that's the problem that we seek to solve. So the reality of what is going on in Australia at the moment, to put all of this into context, operations and outsourcing space is not new. So I am not doing anything revolutionary. I'm just putting my spin on it after 16 years experience in this space. So here's the thing. The operations and outsourcing space is not a new thing, right? I'm painfully aware, like in business, nothing's ever new. You're just doing it your way and putting your spin on it and looking at it with a fresh pair of eyes. So operations outsourcing is a $5.9 billion industry in Australia alone, and it's grown by nearly 10% a year. Now, I've done this in corporate. I've worked for companies where they've taken a big chunk of operations and they've managed it. It's called a managed service provider. So I've worked for 2 different companies that have done it. One where we went in and we did the whole managed service of hiring all of the contractors, employing them, doing all the liaison with the recruitment agencies, and then managing the payroll of that. Another where we managed big payroll and contractor management of agencies. There's other services where they do all the tech outsourcing, right? It's not a new model. So other outsourcing providers, they take on all of the tech infrastructure. So corporates go to them and say, right, we want you to be responsible for all the laptops, all of the phone services, make them run. And if it's broken, you fix it with like help desks and line 1 and line 2 support. So what I'm doing is not new. It's very established. And it's just not as common for small business because small business owners keep saying, I want to hire this one OBM, one VA, but that person is also outsourced. They are usually their own business. They'll have multiple clients. They've got their own ABN. They're still not a part of your business. So what I'm doing now is I'm taking, instead of it being one person, it's a service, but giving you all the systems and processes that if you want to leave that service at any point, you just put it in-house. Exactly the same as what corporate do, right? So it's not new. It's a $5.9 billion industry alone, and it's growing by nearly 10% a year. There are 35,000 outsourcing businesses here, which tells you it's not a boutique idea. It's not new. And smart founders are building fractional teams, not full-time unicorns. So you have, everyone will have heard of fractional accountants, fractional operations. I think is the next big thing, and we're ahead of the curve. And I am seeing it a bit in the States as well, right? And in the UK, which is always indicative of the fact it's coming for Australia. So business, when your business relies on one person, it makes it really fragile. And when it relies on a system, it is scalable, especially when it relies on a system that you can then take, you plug it in, you learn from the experts, you get to keep all the IP. And you know what? Eventually, if you want to bring it in-house, great. It's not uncommon when we're in the early stages of businesses to rely on external experts and then mirror those models. Think about hiring an advertising agency, a marketing agency. Like, you don't necessarily want to work with 5 different people who've got 5 different skills. You just want the social media. You just want the marketing results. And then over time, if you grow, you might bring it in-house. Exactly the same model, right? It's that fragility. Like, you trying to manage operations and manage an OBM or manage an offshore VA when you're not an expert, that is going to put quite a strain on you. It's the same as I am probably not confident to hire a marketing junior person and manage them because I don't know enough about marketing. It's not my strength. So at Grow Advantage, we built our model intentionally with layers to protect both founders and the team. And that's with my team too, right? Like, I make it very clear that my Australian integrator staff, they are not to do $12, $14, $15 offshore VA tasks. Like, they're not to do automations. I have someone who's a specialist in that, right? Because it burns people out, going back to what I said at the start of the episode. People should be doing what they love, not doing all of the things. So at the top of this model is the strategic integrator. That's your big picture pilot. At the moment, I fill that role and I love it so much. So I am an integrator, but I talk fluent visionary. So I love working with female CEOs who've got these massive visions and they're usually doing amazing things in business. The clients that I work with are really influential coaches. They are leading allied health businesses. They are leading education businesses. They are really making huge impacts in small business in Australia. And they just need really solid support, right? So at the top of the model is, and I was talking triangles, so at the top of the triangle is the strategic integrator. Underneath is the integrator. So that's where I talked about them being your cabin crew. Essentially, they are a hybrid between an account manager, a project manager, and they've got usually some pretty strong operations chops. I have more than one of them on my team. They're freaking amazing. If you're a client listening to this podcast, massive shout out to Sophia, Olivia, Beck. You're the bomb. I love having you on my team. The support you give me and the support you give our clients is phenomenal. So they are your cabin crew in that metaphor. I don't know what I want to call them in the farm one. I don't want to make any more offense, right? But they are making sure the right people are in the right seats. So they are giving the client the right support from the level below. But essentially, I guess that our client experiences, you're only dealing with your strategic integrator once a month for that big picture thinking. And then your day-to-day operations is getting run by an Australian expert, but then they're managing the layer below. So you don't have to. The other analogy I would use is like you go to Telstra, right? And you want your Wi-Fi. Like, you don't care if it's Bob in accounts and Susan in billing and Tom, the guy who comes and puts the copper wiring in. You just want the Wi-Fi. It's the same concept. So underneath the integrator is the trained ops team who are essentially offshore talent, everything from your sort of tech VAs, your design VAs, your admin VAs, killers with diary management, calendar management, incredible communications. I've been hiring for 16 years. We hire the best for our team, right? And all of them execute within their zones of genius. And we really drill them on the interview process when they bring them in, right? And we test them out on my business first. Like, what makes them really, really happy? Like, what do they want to spend all their time doing? And then we, as much as possible, we align them to that so that then you get this multi-pooled ops team. If another person's away, because it's not like human dependent, it's skills dependent, we cross-train everyone and then another VA steps in and the integrators are the same. And honestly, the integrators can probably step into my job should they need. They're very, very, very strong. When the clients scale, our team scales to support them. And because we support multiple high-performing businesses, every new automation, every template, and every efficiency gets shared across our network of clients. We're not stealing IP. If we're building something, we're bringing that knowledge in-house and we're letting our clients know, hey, we've just done this. Is this something you need for your business? It means that knowledge share is growing. Every client gets the benefit of collective intelligence. So no burnout, no chaos, just flow. And without them having to think about all of these things. I did another podcast episode recently where I literally talked about you can't be doing your job as the business owner and then continuous improving, right? So you can't be in normal delivery and then focus on launching something new, building something new without a lot of support, because our brains simply can't do that. You can't task switch successfully. All of the science, all of the data is there. It simply does not work. So to close this episode, I've really enjoyed this one. It's been really fun, especially with our farm and our first class flights. But if you have been chasing that one magical VA or OBM unicorn who's going to fix it all, I am telling you to stop. Unicorns are adorable, but they are not real and they are not going to scale your business. Systems do, teams do, and ecosystems like the one we've built do. You don't need to be the farmer, the pilot, or the goat chasing chaos around the freaking paddock. You deserve to be the CEO of your business. Calm, supported, in first class, arriving where you're meant to be. And that's exactly why we're building what we're building at Grow Advantage. That is exactly why I record this podcast episode every week, because I want you to finally step out of the cockpit of the plane and back into your first class CEO seat. Because we're not here to do magic at Grow Advantage. We're here to build systems that work for you so you can absolutely love your job as CEO and have the business and the life that suits your energy and is success for you. I have so loved recording this episode. If you have loved it too, I would absolutely love you to share on your socials what your one biggest takeaway was. And if you're not subscribed or following the show, please do so. Feedback means the world to me. Words of affirmation are absolutely my love language. But just remember, you're the star of the CEO. I want you to sit in first class. It's been a blast. Until next time.
Audience exclusive.